Okay, for example number 3, we want to start out with asking ourselves, is the variables on the left and numbers on the right? Well, no, this negative 18y is over here on the right, and we need it on the left. So opposite of negative 18y is positive 18y. I want it to come after the y squared so that I can complete the square here in just a second. So what we have now is we have x squared minus 26x, which is good. You want your x's side by side. If they're not, fix it. Plus y squared. Now this new plus 18y that is now over here, that goes away, and we have our negative 220. So now it's in the form. We're ready to complete the square so that we can factor and find everything we need to know. So x squared minus 26x, complete the square, plus y squared plus 18y, complete the square, equals negative 220. Oops. And the two numbers that I'm having to complete the square with. Okay, so cut negative. This is the first time we've had to deal with a negative, so I'm going to take it a little bit slower here. Half of negative 26 is negative 13. Now, be careful if you're using the calculator, because if you're like, okay, that's negative 13, and if I type in negative 13 squared, it is not negative 169, because the calculator is not reading to square the negative. Because if I type it in like that, a negative times a negative is a positive. So the calculator is only squaring the 13, and then it's just tacking the negative onto it, which is going to make our work incorrect. If you put negative 169 on both sides, it is not going to work. First of all, that wouldn't even be able to be factored. It's non-factorable, and then it's just going to make your radius wrong on the other side. So use parentheses if you're going to check your work, or just know that when you complete the square, it's always going to be a positive number, because a negative times a negative is always and forever going to be a positive number. So just be careful with that, because that will cause your answer over here to be wrong if you put a minus. Okay. Half of 18 is 9. 9 squared is 81. That one's pretty straightforward since we've been working with positives. So x minus 13 squared. Now the minus right there is very important because we were dealing with a negative 13. So you want to leave it negative when you factor it, because you do want the negative 26. And if you put a plus, it would be a positive 26. So just my point, be very, very careful with your negatives and your positives. Okay. Over here, this is all positive, so we'll just use that 9 we talked about. And then over here on the other side, let's go ahead and add all that together. And we get 30, which is not a perfect square, but that's okay. That happens sometimes. So the center is going to be positive 13, negative 9. And your radius, no, that is not a perfect square. So we're just going to leave it, for our purposes, we're just going to leave it as the square root of 30.